ask y'all something, and I bet I know the answer. Should this even have existed? What's up, guys? Your boy Free C here, and welcome to my review of The Crow, a retelling of the original 1994 film, to where you have Shelly, who gets caught up in something sinister and is sent to this rehab facility to where she meets Eric. They fall in love and escape, only to be killed by a band of thugs, which forces Eric to come back from the dead to exact bloody vengeance. That original 1994 film has been considered a cult classic since its time. It spawned 3 sequels, and honestly, I can honestly say that City of Angels was actually my favorite, but the original one will always be king. I'm a fan of Brandon Lee and what he did to the character. I've never been as to the hype as everybody else, but it's a pretty good movie. I always enjoy a good revenge type story. Of course, I've never really held it as high as most, but The Crow is decent enough, and I think it's really good on its own merits. When they announced the reboot, remake, retelling, whatever you want to call it, I was curious. I wasn't super stoked, as I'm sure a majority of people actually weren't either, but curious adjacent. Again, I'm always down for a good revenge type story. Notice I said good. But was this as bad as everyone says it is? Does this deserve to tank as much as it is critically and financially? Or is there just a slight glimmer of hope at the end of this tunnel? Starting off with the positives for The Crow, I gotta say, Bill Skarsgård, he was pretty decent as the Crow himself. He's one of those actors that's been popping up a lot here lately. The last one I've seen him in was John Wick Chapter 4 as the main villain of that. And he was Pennywise in the most recent adaptations of the It films. And he's going to very soon be in that Welcome to Derry show that's going to hit Max sometime next year or so. I thought he was pretty decent in this film. Not so much as the Eric persona, which we'll get into here in a little bit, but still, as the Crow, I thought he was pretty decent. He didn't match up Brandon Lee by a long shot, that's for sure, but still, he was pretty decent on his own merits. Mostly because the Carnage candy, so sweet. They hold nothing back in this, and everybody who followed me knows how much I love my Carnage candy. The sweeter the better. And here, they get the sweetest, which is the only main thing I can probably hold against the OG. That one was kind of bloodless. It did have some gory scenes here and there, but compared to this one sort of overshadows that just a little bit. Not by much, but just a little bit. This one pulls out all the cards. It holds nothing back. It's definitely more in your face, that hard R-rated jolt, which I loved. And I like the fact that they gave the storyline, the plot line of the Crow character to where he can feel every bullet, he can feel every bone cracking, every muscle tearing. And there's a part in there to where his leg gets broke, where the bone sticks out. He literally had to stick it back in, and you could just feel his pain. Just outright excruciating. And I thought he played those portions off pretty well. It was pretty gnarly, and I gotta give him that. It's just that gnarly, just very dark sense to where you're walking around as this spirit or undead or whatever this Crow character is, or whatever the Crow is, and you can still feel pain, but no matter how many times you get shot, you cannot die. And I think that added an extra layer, an extra text of layer of flavor to just how much this guy can endure without losing it. Well, almost. I'm going to try not to compare this too much to the original Crow. I'm just going to judge this movie on its own merits, but I don't really know how to. I don't see any other way to move on. But I do like the goth feel that this film brought out. Just like with that original, it did bring out that goth-like environment. Still felt intact here for sure. That coloring and lighting, it still captured the spirit of how that original one was in this context. Especially visually and just the way it looked. The lighting and darkness, and it looked pretty cool. Just with the backdrop and the settings, the set pieces and all that, it looked pretty cool. I really did appreciate that. And there's this whole afterlife scenario, which was pretty interesting, to where after Eric and Shelly are killed, he goes to this afterlife to where he's led by this spiritual guide, which they did something similar to this in the original film, to where they filmed Brandon Lee's character going to this afterlife, to where they hired Michael Berryman of the original Hills Have Eyes films to play the spiritual leader in that. But they decided to cut it out anyway for unknown reasons. I think it's because of Brandon Lee's death and just everything else chaotic that went on the set on that film. But here, I thought they did it pretty good. I actually thought it added a little bit more text, a little bit more lore to it. And it does a decent job. Sammy Bojilla, if I'm not pronouncing that name right, I apologize. I thought he did a really good job as the spiritual leader, as the spiritual coach, I guess you could call him. The spiritual guide. I thought it added a nice narrative to it. Especially in terms of the Crow lore. To actually see what the character faces. You never see any of that in the original. But in here, you get the whole shebang and the possible consequence of everything that he does. And I actually did enjoy that just for that little portion of it. And like I said, it added to the lore, which I did appreciate. Unfortunately, that's all the good I could say about this. Despite what I said in my positives, despite all the things that I did enjoy about it, as we dive into my negatives, this film is pretty bad. It shouldn't have even existed. It really shouldn't have been made. This is something that's been discussed since 2008. I don't know, I might be wrong there, but it's been a ways back nonetheless. Different directors, writers, filmmakers has come and gone. And it's almost like the gods was telling them, don't do it. Don't. Well, just how did that work out for you? Really? Tell me. Seriously, I think the only reason this movie exists is so that teenage girls could swoon and woo over Bill Skarsgård. I'm just saying.
That's a good one.
This is basically a lifeless and empty film. The film never felt like it was trying to say anything. It never felt like it tried to triumph for that original, which, how the hell can you? It just felt like another excuse for studios to make a quick buck. There's no enthusiasm here, no merits, no real anything in here, no deep impact. Especially compared to that original film, it's just as bland as ever here.
What a surprise!
And that's mostly because of the pacing. It drags on and on and on. It just goes way too long with explanations that don't really need to be told and just stuff that you don't really care about. And because of that, this is the most slow-paced action film of a badass character ever. And what really annoys me is this is a revenge type driven story. They don't need to be slow. They don't need to be like this. They're not supposed to be like that because it takes about an hour and 15 minutes for the Crow to actually show the hell up. And that's mostly because you get a sleeper of a first act to where they basically just show the Shelly and Eric character just meet and you get to know more about them, and they just try to make it in a way to where you care about them a little bit more than what the OG film did, which were in flashbacks, which I would have preferred. It's just the entire first act is of Shelly and Eric meeting and falling in love. They try to rope you in by giving you way too much screen time. A little bit too much screen time. But here's the problem, and the problem lies mostly with the Shelly character. She was just as bland as ever. I didn't think she was a good enough fit and a good enough match for the Eric character. The chemistry just seemed way off. She just didn't feel like she fit in the tone of the film. You just deal with two of the most dumbest characters ever, to where you have these bad guys that are chasing these people, that are chasing her mostly, and the Shelly character knows this. Yet they choose to stay and go to clubs, drink, do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. On several occasions. Instead of running away, which is the best scenario, the smartest scenario, which at this point, smart and logic is pretty much thrown out the window. But because they do those stupid decisions, I don't feel sorry for them. You get what you get and you get what you deserve. Instead of doing the smart thing, which is running the hell away, there are many options to do that. Hitch a ride, run, use those little two little things called legs and just run. And because they chose not to do that, they get killed. Sorry, you deserve it. You get no sympathy from me. Should have done the smart thing and actually run if you actually valued your lives. And there's just no way around that. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. And what pisses me off even more is that there's a line that actually refers to that actually reminds you of that. It's like they're playing off their stupidity. And it's like, God almighty, just What else you got for me? Just come the hell on. Let's get this over with. Right off the bat, you could just tell that common sense and logic doesn't exist. And you get the most bland villains here, which is what made the original stand out so much. From 10/10 to Top Dollar, that original film had the most stand-outish villains. They're pretty much a quintessential part of what made that film unique. Here, they ripped all of that away and replaced them with tired, dry, uninteresting people. Even in Danny Huston, who plays the main lead villain, the main crime lord villain of the film, anything after 30 Days of Night, which he was actually pretty good in, everything else has just been pretty much a cliche at this point. It's basically the same thing, same wash, rinse, and repeat thing. Anything from Wonder Woman to Angel Has Fallen to this, it's just nothing new. There's nothing fresh. He just doesn't do that much, and it's pretty much the same thing, and there's just nothing here. It's like if you took this character and put it in Angel Has Fallen, or if you took this character and put it in Wonder Woman, it'd be no different there. Plus, they gave him these supernatural powers that kind of throws a wrench in what the Crow actually is. Now, I know these films have always been kind of supernatural driven, but the way this villain uses his supernatural powers is kind of contradictory to what the films are based about. And it kind of contradicts of what these movies stand for. And that's just not cool at all, because like I mentioned before at the beginning of this review, there's a plot that kind of puts a doubt in the Crow of doing everything he's doing for this girl, for this woman. You have this scenario to where this video gets sent to the Shelly character on her phone, and Eric takes a look at it, but when you see what it actually is, it's more of a what the F moment than a, oh, okay, I get it now. Really wasn't really nothing like that. It was one of those videos that kind of made you think, oh, now we're going to get to the bottom of it. But then when you watch it, it's like, really? That's all you really got? That's what made you doubt her? That's all you really got when there's really no evidence to support his theory of doubt at all? I understand that they were trying to go for a more modern audience. This is a reboot, retelling, whatever you want to call it, but screw that noise. It's the Crow. Why would you screw with it like that?
You dummy!
As I said, the Eric character was just way too soft for my taste. With Brandon Lee, he was more focused. He knew what he wanted. He never had a doubt enter his mind, not once in that film. Here, as much as I liked Bill Skarsgård, you get more of a full-blown wuss. And he sees the consequences because of that. Now, from a different perspective, I could see why that would be more intriguing. But the way they played it out, it's like, no, it doesn't work. To me, that's just a cheaper way of adding more nonsense that really shouldn't have been there in the first place. Period. Point being, Skarsgård was better as the Crow, but as Eric, kind of sucked. Sucked majorly. I'm sorry to say, but this was nothing more than a lifeless, quick cash grab. It wasn't the worst I've seen. It wasn't Madam Web or Halloween Ends bad, but it sure as hell wasn't the greatest. That's for sure. If you want my advice, go see Alien Romulus, go see Deadpool and Wolverine. Hell, go see Borderlands. I'd actually pick that movie over this. Yes, I do admit it. And for all you chick flick fans, go see It Ends With Us. But as far as this new iteration of The Crow is concerned, it's not the worst I've seen. It's not the greatest. Stick with that original film and just skip this one entirely. So The Crow, what was your thoughts on it? Have you seen it yet? Are you a fan? Are you somebody that actually found some enjoyment in this? Maybe more than most? If so, there's no judgment here. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Was this something you enjoyed more than the original? Or like with most, was this not for you? Do you prefer that original film over this? He asked, realizing that was probably a stupid question.
No shit.
Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for clicking here. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.